Hi, my name is Josie Hawkins, and I'm a student at BYU in History 338. Welcome to my presentation on South Korean esports dominance. In my presentation today, it's going to be multimedia, so there's going to be some clips of the most popular games and Koreans demonstrating their skill in these games, as well as some pictures of trophies and esports teams and things like that. So I hope you enjoy my presentation. So, South Korean pro gamers are considered better than the world's best. They have taken the world by storm as they dominate the growing global esports scene. The Koreans compete with and conquer the best Chinese, North American, and European players in the most popular games worldwide, despite the notably smaller population size of their country compared to other gaming areas in the world. So, which esports do South Koreans dominate? Because there's a lot of different games that people play professionally nowadays, and the Koreans, while they're good at all of them, they have particular dominance in a few, and we'll talk about those. So, the most popular esports categories worldwide are RTS, MOBA, FPS, Battle Royale, Fighter, and Sports games. And these are the most popular esports that people currently play, but South Korea has actually experienced the most success in the RTS and MOBA category. So they completely dominate RTS games, and they've actually only ever lost a handful of titles in those games. And in MOBAs, they do really well also, especially in League of Legends, but they haven't won a title in the next most popular MOBA, which is Dota. So, Korean professional gamers have experienced incredible RTS and MOBA success, as I said before, and so in the following slides, I will kind of show you guys how awesome they have done at these categories of games, and their records will be compared against the rest of the world. So, we're going to start with the RTS category, and that would start with StarCraft Brood War, and this game is kind of the first one that took off esports-wise. It was released as an expansion pack for the original StarCraft Brood War and bolstered the infantile PC esports scene with a fresh new take on competitive strategy video games. As demonstrated by this chart here, Korea was completely unrivaled in their skill at StarCraft Brood War, and no other countries were able to defeat them at the World Cyber Games International Championships. So they had 11 championship wins, and other countries could not defeat the Koreans at this game. So basically in this game, the Koreans were mostly competing against each other for a title. In Warcraft 3, this is a different RTS game, very similar to StarCraft, but it's newer than StarCraft Blood Wars, but it's not as popular in Korea as StarCraft was. I guess many people think that Koreans prefer the sci-fi futuristic style as StarCraft more than the fantasy themes in Warcraft. And StarCraft also allows players to control more units, and many people believe that this leaves more room for skill expression. Nonetheless, this game appears to be on the cusp of modern Korean RTS dominance, as Korean players were only able to win championships towards the end of this game's run in 2010 and 2011. Despite Chinese dominance in this game, as you can see, this huge chunk of Chinese championship wins, Korea still was able to find noteworthy success. Europe got these, China got 7, and unfortunately in the United States, no one was able to win a Warcraft 3 championship title. As for StarCraft 2, the most recent edition of the StarCraft franchise, Korea obviously did really well, as evidenced by this chart, and so Korean returns to their StarCraft dominance with the release of the new version, and basically, yeah, for the entirety of this game's existence from 2012 to 2020, Korean pro players have been exceptionally dominant. There was one very awesome Finnish player who won out over a Korean runner-up, but as you can see, it only happened once. And StarCraft is still today the most popular RTS worldwide, and Koreans are expected to continue to keep winning in StarCraft 2. So now I want to talk to you guys about South Korean MOBA success, and yeah, there's two really popular MOBA games, and we'll talk about each of those. This one's Dota 2, and as you can see, a Korean team has not won a Dota 2 championship, which is very odd, considering they are really good at MOBAs, but Dota came out as a fan-made mod of Warcraft 3, and if you remember, Warcraft 3 is the RTS game that Korea was not as successful in. So that could play a factor into that. The original game developers of Dota 2 inside the Warcraft 3 engine were purchased by a game company Valve, and Dota 2 emerged and became a really popular and competitive MOBA. And yeah, this MOBA was actually just extremely popular in Europe and China as well. And just, yeah, it wasn't as popular in Korea, and Korea just hasn't had much success in this MOBA. But they still do have teams, and they still are rather competitive. They just haven't had a championship title yet. As for League of Legends, however, as you can see, they have won more than half of the game's total titles, which is pretty crazy. And League of Legends quickly outpaced Dota in Korea as the most popular MOBA genre game. And it's the most popular MOBA genre game in the world currently as well. So League of Legends, yeah, it's just really popular in Korea and all over the place. So South Korea saw astounding success in competitive LOL, is what people call League of Legends, winning more than half of the game's international championships. And some of the best performers on the Chinese League of Legends teams, so a lot of these championships here, actually had up to 2 Korean players on the team, so that would be 40% of their team, because each League of Legends team is composed of 5 players. And those Koreans were imported to bolster the Chinese squads, and oftentimes China was able to win, often with the help of Korean players. So Korea is truly unrivaled in their League of Legends supremacy, and they've been able to really dominate that game. So in this last League of Legends tournament, 2021, it was a very interesting tournament. So this team right here, if you can see my mouse, T1, this is Faker's team. We'll talk about him later. He's a really famous League of Legends player. He dominated another Korean team to move on to the semis. This is a Korean team here, dominated my favorite team, sadly, North American team, to move on to the semis. These are 2 Chinese teams competing against each other, Edward Gaming and Royal Never Give Up. And yeah, so Chinese teams beating up each other. Edward Gaming ended up being the one to move on. And then this is Damwon Kia, another Korean team beating a European team. So after the quarterfinals, the semifinals had 3 Korean teams out of the 4 that were in the entire tournament. So all the Korean teams got exceptionally far. 3 of them went all the way to the semis, and then there's just this 1 Chinese team left. So pretty crazy. Gen G took Edward Gaming to... So Gen G is like, I think Korea... Oh, actually, they are Korea's 3rd seed. So they weren't even expected to be super good in the tournament and go very far, but they took Edward Gaming to 5 games, which these are best of 5 series, so they gave them a real run for their money. And then this game was very close between 2 Korean teams as well. And then ultimately, the championship went to 5 games again, even though the image is a bit cut off. It went to 5 games, and Edward Gaming came out on top of the huge favorites, Damwon Kia. So this was actually quite the upset, as Edward Gaming is a very good team, but everyone thought that Damwon Kia... They actually won the 2020 tournament, and so everyone thought that they were still in championship form and would win another title this year, but Edward Gaming was able to come out with the upset. So this is Edward Gaming enjoying their championship win. So they defeated Damwon in best of 5 series, like I said before, and they're a Chinese team. And so in League of Legends, you have 5 players on a team. And since Edward Gaming is a team from the Chinese League of Legends region, they're only allowed to have 2 imported players from other regions. So they could have like 1 American player and 1 European player, but in their case, they chose to import 2 Korean players, and those are these guys right here. This is Lee Scout Yi-chan right here, and Park Viper Do-hyun is the guy right here on the far right. And so Scout in the middle of the picture here was actually the championship MVP, with Viper being his runner-up for MVP. So both of them essentially really carried their team, and they performed really well. And their performance was vital to Edward Gaming's success. So although a true Korean team didn't bring home the League of Legends championship this year, they were still represented very well in the semifinals with 3 Korean teams out of the 4 teams. And then EDG's roster itself was 40% Korean, which is pretty impressive. So Korea was still very well represented despite not bringing a championship home. So now I've mentioned major gaming regions, and I kind of wanted to solidify the definitions of what those are. So in a lot of PC games, there's like 4 major areas, and that's like North America, so including Mexico, United States, and Canada. China is its own, and then Europe, including all the countries in both Western and Eastern Europe. The whole Europe is one region, and then South Korea is actually its own region. And these regions are consistent throughout most PC games, and since League of Legends and StarCraft are the ones we're going to be talking about most today, these regions align perfectly with what we see in those games. So I just wanted to compare just the population of these major regions. So as you can see, Korea makes up a tiny fraction of the population of people in these areas. I don't. It's kind of insane how they still perform so well, just being a tiny sliver of this pie. This graph kind of changes things because this is a graph of player rate, or the League of Legends players. And so as you can see, Korea's chunk of the pie gets a lot bigger because they have a higher play rate. More Koreans are interested in playing League of Legends, and North America's kind of shrinks. China is huge. They have tons of players, but so this data is actually an estimate because China is very private with their League of Legends account data, but this is actually a very low estimate. So it could be much larger, but this is the low end of the estimated account numbers for China. So Korea has a much bigger portion than they do. I'll go back to population, but it still doesn't account for how much esports success they've had internationally. They don't just have tons of players and tons of teams. There's something else going on that makes them truly exceptional at esports. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. With such a small population, how did they do it? How did they be better than the rest of the world at all these games? So Korea is actually the most wired nation in the world, according to recent internet studies. And although Korea was a latecomer to this the internet revolution, more than 95% of their households are wired, and this is as 2010, so this number has increased significantly, I would imagine. And after broadband connection was introduced there, they quickly got to that number. So internet took up there really fast, and internet is highly accessible. So yeah. Another reason for their potential success is the type of games they choose. Shortly after Korea was liberated from Japanese colonial rule, the South Korean government imposed a ban on Japanese cultural elements, including manga, anime, music, Japanese cinema, and importantly, Japanese video games. This ban heavily influenced the gaming preference of South Koreans. Nintendo and other Japanese game developers created some of the most popular and highly regarded single-player games, but these games were unavailable in Korea until Korea's gaming scene was already well established in the early 2000s. Multiplayer competitive games like StarCraft from American developers at Blizzard became extremely popular due in part to lack of competition with other video game options. Remarkably, despite sharing many cultural similarities with Korea, Japan actually has a very weak esports scene. And this actually, recently at the 2021 League of Legends tournament, it was huge because Japan made it into groups and then lost every single game. So they finally made it into the tournament basically, but then they lost every single game after that. But making it into the tournament itself was huge for them because they hadn't ever seen success like that before. And again, actually, they did have 2 Korean imports similar to the Chinese team, but that was still huge for Japan, and they did better than they ever had before. So yeah, Japan actually has a weak PC gaming esports scene. This is likely because Japanese people seem to prefer single-player games and actually excel in speedruns and setting records in single-player games, while Koreans prefer competitive player-versus-player games like StarCraft, League of Legends, things like this. So yeah, maybe it seems like Koreans' game preference originated from bans on Japanese video games. So PC bongs also played a huge part in Korean gaming success. PC bongs just make internet and gaming really accessible for Koreans. So after the internet became widely available, PC bongs sprung up all over Korea, and these computer rooms is what PC bong actually means. These computer rooms became hotspots for online gaming and fostered its popularity in competitions. Early PC bongs were a place where South Koreans could directly compete against each other in informal online gaming tournaments, and these tournaments became popular that Korean cable channels actually started to broadcast them to a larger audience, and Korea was the first in the world to broadcast esports. Eventually, the popularity of esports and the competition caught up internationally, and so Seoul hosted the first World Cyber Games, which is essentially an Olympics for computer games, and they hosted that competition in 2001. The prize pool for the first World Cyber Games was $300,000, and professional gamers came from all over the world to compete with Korea's best. Now, esports professional is ranked 5th among the most desirable jobs for Koreans, and it's 5th behind doctor, lawyer, and a few other really seeming like other jobs that make a lot of money. So it's young Koreans really want to be esports professionals. And PC Bongs and early broadcasting of esports led Korean gamers to be noticed on an international stage and brought attention on these new, extremely talented gamers. The global market drove companies to invest in esports, leading professional gaming to become a viable career rather than just a hobby. So, South Korean culture has also played a big part on Korean success, and we'll discuss that now that the historical stage is set with the internet and with PC Bongs and the gaming preferences. Now I'm going to talk about some elements of Korean culture that seem to impact the way that they play games and what makes them so dominant in esports. So South Korea actually is the birthplace of esports. Aside from Australia, Australians actually technically began the esports scene by playing Nintendo games competitively like Donkey Kong and Mario Bros. Since those were banned in Korea, South Koreans created the first esports league when StarCraft became popular there in 1997. Korea is regarded as the birthplace of esports, of PC esports. Facilitated by brand new internet infrastructure and the online craze, as well as the ability to play multiplayer online competitive games with those across the country, competitive esports in South Korea boomed, and esports quickly became popular nationwide. With this, the extremely competitive nature of Korean esports was born as more and more players entered the scene. So, a lot of what makes Korean players good is their really powerful competitive drive. So this here is a quote. I'll just read it. This is a quote from a player. He's currently playing for Genji Academy League of Legends, and so this is a quote from him. He says he sleeps only 3 or 4 hours a day, and he wears a brace around his right hand to lessen the pain from too much gaming. But he wants to become a star. He says, "I dream of an esports arena packed with fans all rooting for me." So this is a League of Legends tournament. This picture here is a League of Legends tournament from a few years ago, and you can see how full the arena is of fans. These players are essentially rock stars, and so the fame and the glory is what drives a lot of Koreans to come play. So competitive drive is also fostered by opportunity. So pictured here, this is Faker, who I mentioned before. He has won 3 League of Legends national titles, so here he's showing off his trophies. So before people in other countries, Korean gamers had the ability to turn their gaming passion into a viable career because they were quickly backed by massive corporations such as Samsung, Nongshim, and SK Telecom from as early as 1998. Success as a professional gamer was rewarded with money and fame. The South Korean government also put policies in place that facilitated esports, as well as put a good deal of money into sponsoring it. Unlike anywhere else, Koreans who are good at gaming are highly regarded like celebrities. Koreans are funny, they don't have like this, well they kind of look down on people that are addicted to games, but if you're good at games, you're a celebrity. They don't call people that are good at games like nerds or geeks. People that are good at games in Korea are like superstars, and they end up marrying supermodels, make tons of money, are idolized, looked up to, and this fame and idolization develops new talent because they want a chance at that fame and glory. So these pictures are from League of Legends Esports.com, and as you can see, these are the popular Korean esports teams for League of Legends, and I want you to notice how many are sponsored. So like Nongshim is a popular ramen brand, SK Telecom is like cell service, Damwon Kia, they make cars, Samsung. So all of these companies are getting into esports. Popularity of esports spread through Korea like wildfire, and Korean corporations were quick to monetize it and began sponsoring competitive leagues. And this money allowed future players to dream of lucrative rewards and monetary success through gaming skills, which has continually facilitated Korea's gaming talent. Popular esports players also attracted dedicated fan bases whose time and efforts could also be monetized by these companies. Advertising through and to the fans proved highly effective for these corporations, and esports continues to be an excellent investment for many Korean corporations, resulting in its continued growth. So this is a picture of the subway, and as you can see, esports are quite unavoidable. This is an advertisement. It's just in the subway. It's glaring at you. This guy is kissing his trophy as you're trying to board your train, and yeah, there's been advertisements like this on a Boeing 747 airplane. The presence of esports is unavoidable. So this is the StarCraft 2019 champion enjoying his spoils, and I can attest to this. When I was in Korea for a brief time, I loved seeing these esports ads and things like this. These things are they're less common in America for sure. So having a huge billboard about games I thought was so cool and unique to Korea. So the all work and no play culture. So this part of Korean culture also kind of fosters their competitiveness in gaming. So in fact, Korean competitiveness in esports was already present in academics, sports, other parts of their society. Koreans start their schooling as early as 5 a.m. and the students can finish their studies at hagwons, extra schools, as late into the night as 11 or even midnight. Acceptance into prestigious colleges is so competitive that students must push themselves to the extremes to compete. Rigorous, long hours of practice are standard for South Koreans, so the competitive nature of esports is naturally facilitated by this kind of culture. Aspiring gamers that are unable to keep up with the demands of their schoolwork are kind of forced to specialize. Many end up focusing solely on gaming, realizing that without good grades, success is impossible, and when they compete with those that spend their entire day study, they're never going to be able to outpace them. So gaming is sometimes an option for these people that want to specialize on games. Because Korean esports are so competitive, aspiring professional gamers are required to practice exorbitant amounts to succeed. Aspiring gamers sacrifice friends, other hobbies, sleep, school, in their attempts to take their skill to the limit. The competitiveness of Korean esports fosters the dedication of aspiring players and leads to incredible mechanical skill at these competitive games. The best way to convey this awesome skill of the players is to show clips. So I wanted to provide some background on the games for those that aren't familiar with them, and so I'll start with League of Legends. So this is a map of the playing field of League of Legends. So as I said before, League of Legends is a 5v5 game. So there's 5 players on each team, and one team plays on the blue side, bottom left corner, and one team is on the red side, top right corner. And each member of the team has a specific role. So as you can see, like these top, mid, jungle support, AD carry, we'll go into more details on those later, but these are the different positions. So the objective of League of Legends is to push all the way to the Nexus, which is this thing, located in the very back of each team's base in the corners here. And the Nexus is defended by a series of turrets. So these turrets have to be destroyed before you can reach the Nexus. By killing the champions and destroying the other champions and destroying the turrets, teams can push to the enemy Nexus and win the game. So now I'll go into detail about the different roles. So top laners, they fight up here in this quadrant of the map. And top lane champions are, each character that you play in League of Legends is called a champion. So the champions that these guys play as are usually big and strong guys that can handle a lot of enemy attacks, and they try to block for their teammates. They also can like engage and start fights, things like this. So yeah, they're just kind of like the beefy, tanky guys. In the jungle, which is here and here, so the jungle just kind of roams around like this forested area of the map. I don't know if you can, hopefully you can kind of see, like there's a river and there's like these forested areas. The jungle just kind of runs around in here, and they try to ambush the mid lane, the bottom lane, the top lane. They just run around trying to ambush other players and try to get advantages on sides of the map. There's also certain objectives in the neutral area of the map, so if your jungler has control and is doing well, then these objectives are much easier to secure. So in the mid lane is usually a mage champion, and they provide damage to the team, and they control the mid lane, which is like the most important part of the map because the mid lane allows you to rotate to other lanes and to other objectives quickly. So this lane is really important. And the bot lane here, AD carry, is a high damage champion, and they're usually very vulnerable, and so they need a support to protect them. And then that's what this person, the support's job is protecting the AD carry, and they can move around the map and support the rest of the team as well. But they're primarily like a supportive role. They're often like can heal the teammates or put wards to get vision, things like this. Oh yeah, and they engage in team fights. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of League of Legends. So these are the champions, and like I talked about before, these are just a few of them. There's actually over 150 unique guys. Yeah, they just all have different abilities. It creates a ton of variety in the game. And so this champion, this snake lady, is the champion that Faker often plays. And so yeah, this next play I'll show you is Faker using this girl Cassiopeia, and it's crazy. Yeah, so basically this snake person is like Medusa, and she can cast what's called Petrifying Gaze and turn her opponents into stone. And her Petrifying Gaze comes out on the map as like a cone shape. And usually it's kind of easy to dodge because, just like in mythology, if you don't look at Medusa, you're not going to turn to stone. So you can actually dodge this ability by not looking at it. But Faker does something really creative with this Petrifying Gaze here, and I'll show you what happens. So this is mid lane. And to start, I'll mute the video and just kind of walk you through it, and then we'll watch it with the casters later. But yeah, this is a close-up of the mid lane, and this is Faker right here, and this is his opponent. His opponent, I'll play it a little bit so you can see him better. But yeah, his opponent is a champion called Corki. He's the guy riding on a manatee with a machine gun. And Faker is right here. He's the snake. And yeah, above Faker's head, this is the HP bar. You'll notice that Faker has about half of his HP. So HP, if your HP bar reaches 0, that means you're dead. Your champion is back to base and they have to respawn, and your opponent gets control of the lane. So it's a huge deal when you're able to kill another champion. So I'll just continue playing it a little bit. The opponents are facing each other in lane, but oh, I restarted it. Sorry. So what I want you to notice here is that this is the jungler. So she's standing in this bush trying to ambush Faker. So Faker, by being kind of forward in this lane, is actually taking a huge risk because he is potentially going to get ambushed by this jungler. Faker can't see this guy right now, but this guy can see him. So he's taking a big risk by staying in the lane without knowing where the jungler is. So yeah, and he's also low HP, so he might die. So what Faker does here is he's going to use his flash, which is an ability that every champion can use, and it can be used every 5 minutes. It's a teleporting ability, and it's risky to use flash because it's a really good escape tool. Like if the jungler ambushes you and you flash, you're gonna be safe. So yeah, you can only use it every 5 minutes, but Faker's about to use his flash offensively, and he's about to use flash and Petrifying Gaze, and it's gonna completely catch his opponent off guard. So I'll try to kind of describe it as we watch. So yeah, it's kind of hard to see. It happens so fast. But basically, his Petrifying Gaze, look, this is the cone of what it's supposed to look like. So this is Petrifying Gaze. But as you'll notice, this Corki, you'll see this purple swirl above Corki. That means he's stunned, and that means he was hit by the Petrifying Gaze. So basically, by using Flash like this, he kind of bugged out the game and made his Petrifying Gaze fire out backwards so his opponent couldn't see it and was just smacked in the face by it. And then he kills him right after, because that's such a powerful ability, and it's really hard to hit normally, so it's really strong. And the jungler can do nothing. Like here, I'll start it over, and we'll watch it with the casters. But yeah, the jungler, after seeing his teammate just die, he can't go in after that. Yeah, he'll just die too. So it just ruins the play that the enemy team was trying to set up. And Faker just outplayed his opponent here.
With his lane pushing in here, just wanting to try to force Mickey out of the lane. Here comes Elise. And now actually the lane is going to meet right in the middle. So not going to push too far forward for Faker, but there's the flash and the ultimate. First blood going over to Faker. Immediately does.
Yeah, so he basically bugged out the game by doing his flash in combination with his Petrifying Gaze so fast that it shot backwards and invisibly hit his opponent. So yeah, he's pretty crazy. This mechanic was actually removed from the game because it's a bit silly. Like, the opponent can't even react to it. But Faker invented this move, and his creativity and skills helped him be able to pull this off on the LCK stage, or the League of Legends Championship in Korea. He was able to pull this off on stage. So it's really huge. It's just a unique and creative play. And by doing this and killing his opponent here, he was able to get his team really far ahead and control the mid part of the map, and his team went on to win. So, pretty cool. And this is another play by Faker, of course, and in this play, his team is actually really behind. So if you'll notice, up here is the number of kills, And so G2, a European team, is currently winning with 7 kills to 2. And kills, again, the Nexus, destroying the Nexus is what makes you win League of Legends. But kills help because they help you get closer to the goal, and they also provide gold. So in this position, SKT is actually really far behind. So Faker makes a huge play here. And so this time, rather than playing as that snake person, he's playing as a guy that can, he's playing as this guy here, you can see. And then Faker is currently rooted right there. But he's playing as a guy that can steal other champions' ultimate abilities. Oh no, Faker's actually back here, sorry. Faker's running to the lane still. But yeah, he's playing Silas, which is a champion that can steal other people's ultimate abilities. And I'll tell you as he comes in, I'll tell you where he is and things like that. Yeah, let's just start it. Let me mute. So here comes Faker, he's walking in. He's going to use his ability to steal someone's ultimate. So right there, he grabbed Nar's ultimate, which is like this big, basically, it's like this crazy ability where you can grab a bunch of people and flip them into a wall. So he stole his ultimate, and then he flashed forward. So this is his flash right here. The little yellow sparkles is him flashing forward, and then watch. Bam! He throws the entire enemy team this way, and this allows his teammates over here to set up and completely destroy them after he did this. So he basically threw them under the turret, and the turrets are pretty powerful. They do a lot of damage. And so by doing this, he totally ruined this team fight for G2. And yep, his team is able to just clean that up nicely. So I'll let you watch it with the casters and see what they have to say about it.
Just yet, Chain of Corruption has already been used. Here comes Wonder. He eats an enchanted crystal arrow to the face, and Faker's been able to join the fray. 5 members of G2 trying to push forward, but the minion wave is getting...
Faker goes. Oh!
Massive! Manages to steal the null. Faker turns around. He hijacks G2's chances. Listen to that crowd as SKT turn it around.
So yeah, like the casters in that clip said, SKT was able to turn it around, and that play blew open the game completely. And yeah, so this is another 5-game series at the World Championship. So SKT is currently in the lead, 2-1, and so winning this game actually just finished out the series, and it was extremely disappointing because this G2 squad was really good and hoping to be able to win the World Championship themselves. But yeah, Faker just crushed their dreams completely, and with his really, again, using flash and his quick hands to make a really good play, ended up securing the win for SKT.
Just yet, Chain of Corruption.
So now I want to provide a little bit of intro to StarCraft, because I want to show you a play from StarCraft that demonstrates Korean players being excellent at that. And so, yeah, StarCraft is really similar to League of Legends because, as I said before, League of Legends was actually developed from an RTS game similar to StarCraft. It was developed from Warcraft 3. And so a lot of the mechanics are really similar. And the difference being, well, the biggest difference is that in StarCraft or RTS games, instead of just controlling one unit, like your champion, you're controlling a whole army of guys. So there's a lot more going on. It's really intense. And yeah, you have to build your own base too. There's not just a Nexus. You have to build your own base. You have to mine resources. You have to do all these things. And yeah, it requires a lot of micromanaging. They're very demanding with the reaction speed, and they're very demanding, like I said, again, for micromanaging all your different units, mining resources, things like this. So the objective of a StarCraft match is similar to League of Legends. You just have to destroy your opponent's base and get them to surrender, like get them so out of resources or so unable to build an army that they have to surrender, basically. So StarCraft has 3 different races to choose from. My mouse will kind of hover over them. So the first I want to talk about is Protoss, these gold alien guys. Next is Zerg, and they're kind of like the traditional media portrayal of aliens, kind of like creepy teeth, slimy, things like that. And then Terran is a human race. They're just like space marine, futuristic human guys with mech and things like this. So the clip I will show you is similar to this, is a Protoss player versus a Terran player. So I'm hovering over right now with my mouse a Terran army, and you can see like these gray mech type guys versus the gold Protoss guys. And so that kind of provides a nice basis to go off of for this next clip. So let me start it. First I'll show you the clip muted. This is the Katowice 2021 StarCraft Championships. This play was awesome by a player named Juan Parting Lee Suk. So here, I'll pause it really quickly. Right now, Parting is making an assault on a Terran player's base. And so Terran players are typically really good at defending their base because they can build siege tanks and walls and things like this. So Parting is actually making a very bold move by entering his base like this. So only by using his units to the very maximum can he succeed in a fight on... Yeah, because also you'll notice too, the Terran player currently has high ground, giving his units more access to hit Parting's units. So it's an uneven fight for Parting, and he has to really outplay his opponent here with superior mechanics. So I'll continue to clip. So these guys are the main focus of this fight. These Colossus here, they're shooting giant lasers at his opponent's, the Terran's, units. And the Terran's trying to kill them desperately because these Colossus are doing tons of damage. So the Terran is basically sending everything he has at these Colossus. Now he's healing up his Marines so that they can try again to try to deal with the Colossus. And the Colossus are going to come back. They're still doing more damage here. And now he's sending these Vikings to hit the Colossus. But right as that Colossus is about to die, you'll notice its HP bar is extremely low. Right as it's about to die, he picks it up to dodge the Viking missiles. And this allows it to continue attacking and destroying his opponent's base. So yeah, it's really frustrating for the Terran player to deal with because right as he's about to kill the Colossus, he just picks it up. Even though the missiles are flying towards it, he picks it up. And this also buys Parting a ton of time. So yeah, he does it again. He picks it up the other one. It's just funny. Yeah, it's really annoying for the Terran player because he just keeps picking them up and putting them back. Just he's so fast at doing it that the Terran player has no way of killing these Colossus because he's just too fast at picking them up. So basically, he's picking these Colossus up with like a drop ship, like a carrier, this thing. And yeah, this makes them invulnerable to being hit. Technically, this player can damage the carrier ship and that will kill the Colossus as well. But Parting is just too fast and he flies it out of the way. So I'll let you listen to this play from the casters. And yeah, the most important thing to notice here is, yeah, basically the Colossuses, those giant laser guys, and the dropship picking them up and putting them back, and how, yeah, every little movement that Parting makes here is what allows him to overcome his opponent despite taking an uneven fight against his opponent on high ground and in their own base with a lot of defense.
The fight up front, and he knows that. He's putting down defensive turrets here. He's got the Raven for the interference matrix and the anti-armor, and he puts the anti-armor on everything Protoss related apart from a couple sentries and a zealot. He's got this concave though. Is Parting getting a little too deep, a little bit too big for his britches? Oh, nice micro there on that Warp Prism, keeping those Colossi away from those Viking missiles. But again, Parting is not done here. He's got that Warp Prism, so he's going to continue to warp in and continue to pressure. That Natural's looking wide open. Oh, the interference matrix, it's gone now. Only one tank still stands by the looks of it. Nice focus fire by the Vikings on the low health Colossus. Nice dodge with the warp. Oh, the tank is down. The Archon's dealing so much damage. The Marines still high in count. The Colossi haven't really dealt with them just yet, but they are still Colossi, and the Marines really can't dive on that army. More charge loss coming in. Keep in mind, Parting also has +1 attack on these units, so they are hitting a little bit harder here against these non-armor upgraded bio units. One Viking coming forward here, one tank. It just isn't enough, and the charge lots are in the third mineral line. The SCVs on their way home are going to get laser beamed. Oh, the no combat shields is about to finish, but it's almost too late. How many Marines have died to these Colossus? In fact, what are their kill counts? I have no idea, but a third Colossus does turn up here, Maynard. And these two Colossus are just held together by sticky tape to Muslim. I don't know how they're still working. They're so low on hit points, but they are still here and they are still doing damage. TY not targeting down the lower hit point ones. Parting all over the bio army here. Another big lift up there on the Colossi, continuing to get maximum value out of these laser giraffes. And TY is just bleeding resources. GG!
So yeah, that amazing play resulted in forcing the Terran player to FF because his whole base was starting to get torn apart and he knew that he had no chance to be able to kill those Colossus. So yeah, Parting's superior skill and mechanics ended up getting him the victory there. And I also want to add, if Parting were to lose that fight there, it's likely that his base would quickly get destroyed because the Terran player could just move with the remainder of their army for a quick counterattack and just end the game. So this was a risky play by him. It ended up paying off because his mechanics were so clean. And yep, that's that StarCraft play. So now I wanted to talk a little bit about Faker, who's known internationally as the unkillable Demon King. So, as the most famous face in esports, League of Legends superstar Faker, Lee Sang-hyuk, is someone all aspiring pro gamers look up to. His fame has spread throughout the world as international audiences have dubbed him, as I said before, the unkillable Demon King, because killing him in League of Legends is near impossible. Faker began his gaming career by dropping out of high school and focusing strictly on honing his League of Legends ability. He was picked up by SKT and led them to eventually win 3 League of Legends World Championships. Faker's story is the dream that continues to fill Korean PC bongs with hopeful newcomers and what inspires gamers to improve their skills all over the world. So this play, as you'll notice in this play, Summoner's Rift, or the field of play for League of Legends, looks really different because this clip is very old and the graphics of League of Legends have since been drastically upgraded. So yeah, this is actually the play that's kicked off Faker's career, and so his career started more than 10 years ago, so that's why it looks so different than League of Legends looks today. So in this clip here, Faker is playing the same champion as his opponent Zed, and Zed is an assassin championship, very high risk, high reward champ, and he can move around quickly using shadows and things like this. So very mechanically intensive champion. And he just destroys his opponent on the exact same champion, and it's crazy. I'll start the play and then give a better explanation afterwards. I think that'll be better with this one.
Do you have just Faker nightmares? You wake up in a cold sweat, you're like, Faker's behind me.
I know, right? I'm like, even though I only have a mat on the floor, I think he's in the bed. Oh, Faker may be in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves! Faker, what was that?
Yeah,
Faker!
so that happens pretty quickly, so I'll kind of go through what happens. But basically, Faker here is fighting his opponent, the Zed player right here. He's playing the exact same champion Faker is, so there's no difference in what these guys can do. And Faker here is in the enemy base. Faker's on the red team, and he's currently in the blue team's enemy base. And he's getting hit by the blue team turret, so watch his health bar dropping. His health bar is just going to drop super, super low. He's almost dead. Oh, I skipped the beginning, sorry. Where am I? His health bar gets super low. So, look, this guy, all of his HP, everything going for him. Faker has been beat up by the turret to the point where he barely has any HP left. And Faker's still going to manage to turn this fight around, so I'll show you what he does. Bam, he uses his ult. Ryu here, his opponent, also uses his ult, so they both use their ultimate ability, no advantage there. But he dodges all of Ryu's skills and kills him, even though he has... Oh, sorry, I skipped to the next slide. Yeah, he dodges all of his opponent's skills and kills him, even though he has, like, maybe 10% of his HP left, and Ryu had 100% of his HP. So, pretty crazy. He decimated his opponent playing the exact same character, extremely uneven fight, he's just demonstrating his raw mechanical skill. And after this play, Faker's fame and popularity took off. He was able to get on, like I said, he's already on SKT here, but SKT just took off from this, and yeah, they were able to win Worlds 3 times, and Faker is now an idol for aspiring gamers and facilitated South Koreans' cutthroat gaming culture. With hours and hours of practice and dedication, without hours and hours of dedication, success in Korean esports is impossible. As you can see by Faker's mechanical excellence, in order to compete with someone like him, hours and hours of practice will be required. So, I want to talk a little bit about what happens if you are not a successful esports pro. So, many of these players want to be, it's like when people say, oh, I want to be an NBA star, or I want to be a rock star, things like this. They are viable careers, but they have a very low rate of success. So, and as I also mentioned earlier, a lot of young Koreans, esports is actually ranked 5th among desired job occupations, so a lot of them really do want to be esports pros. And players at the very top of esports in the really good organizations are really well taken care of. They have really good living accommodations, even though their training routine is really hard and they still put in long hours, lack of sleep, things like this. They have a comfortable living space, they have nice personal computers, they don't have to go play in a PC bong, they have food and maids that clean up after them, and they have a comfortable place to live. So for new players or players that are aspiring to be professional gamers, they don't have any of these accommodations. So what will they do? And basically, yeah, what they do is like you see these pictures here, these Korean guys, they're grinding out some League of Legends in the PC bong, and oftentimes they do this just eating ramen. They don't take care of their health, and sometimes they get a little bit addicted. They're not paid for their gaming efforts like the superstars are, and improving their skills in these competitive esports games is extremely time consuming and can be detrimental to other career opportunities. It can affect their school, their social life can be affected by it, their health can decline because they're just sitting in a chair, not exercising. Some gamers get completely addicted and, yeah, just completely neglect all the other aspects of their life. According to BBC, there have even been instances when young gamers so addicted to games have actually died in PC bongs, which is really horrible. Parents in Korea often have to drag their children to addiction centers to get them away from their screens and start taking care of their health and focusing on other aspects of their life. So while becoming an esports professional is a viable career option in Korea, it is an extremely risky one. For instance, Faker actually dropped out of high school to compete in professional League of Legends, which severely, obviously, limited his other career options. So many hopeful gamers that follow this path are met with disappointment in themselves and from their families. Further, many parents in Korea, somewhat wisely, do not see esports as a viable career. Multiple professional League of Legends players, including Faker's teammate Bang, actually, have recounted stories about running away from home to chase the tiny chance that they might be able to make it in the pro gaming scene. So yeah, gaming is really influential in Korea to the point where it's affecting a lot of the health of young people. And I just wanted to add a quick mention to Korea has actually tried to pass laws about restricting gaming hours for kids under 16. And they actually had to get rid of that law because of the popularity of esports. People were so mad about it, and they didn't want to hurt their international esports success because it's so important to their cultural identity at this point, and a lot of people have heard of Korea simply because of esports, so they didn't want to affect their global image and hurt their esports pros. And China, facing similar issues to Korea with gaming addiction and things like this, they have recently passed a law that restricts kids under the age of 18 from playing games during the weekdays. They can only play for 3 hours on Sunday and Saturday each. So 3 hours on Saturday, 3 hours on Sunday. And that's the current law in China, and so it'll be interesting to see how that law affects their esports professionals. But yeah, as for Korea, they tried to implement a law like that, but it was met with so much backlash that they got rid of it, and they didn't want to hurt their esports professionals, so interesting. Yeah, I wanted to give a quick mention to women in Korean esports because, as you may have noticed in the presentation up to this point, nearly every picture of every picture in this slideshow up to this point of the accomplished gamers or esports team I've included is just men. Women are rarely able to join top esports organizations or make it big in professional gaming. Esports is currently a very difficult for women to break into due to misogyny and a lower rate of interest in gaming demonstrated by many women. So, according to Forbes, nearly half of all women in gaming have experienced gender discrimination multiple times. For whatever, and this is in a professional setting, this isn't even just like online trolls. This is in a professional setting. They have experienced gender discrimination affecting their esports careers internally, with organizations, with other pros, with teammates, things like this. So, the number for people just simply experiencing misogyny in gaming is much higher. So, for whatever reason, there's just a lot of sexism in the gaming community. In computer gaming, the playing field between men and women is relatively equal, especially compared to athletic sports. Many men, however, claim otherwise, and men often make excuses for the accomplishments of women in gaming, unjustly accusing them of cheating. Fans of games at major events and in chats of streamed game events often call female gamers heinous and misogynistic slurs. What's interesting, though, about the idea that women aren't as interested in esports is that in Korea, many women are very interested in esports. In fact, this esports arena in Korea is actually full of girls. There's a lot of girls here that care about esports. The most obsessive fans of professional esports are females. Girls in Korea are interested in games, but they just don't play them for multiple reasons. One of them is just they can't break into the scene due to misogyny or stereotypes, or some of them just probably simply enjoy being a fan. So yeah, it's interesting that the role of Korean women in Korean esports is being a fan. And their role is still significant because it makes the popularity of the role of esports pro go up, because as I said before, oftentimes Korean esports professionals marry supermodels. They have a lot of support from girls, so these type of fame and glory aspects increase desire to become an esports pro. But it's unfortunate that the contribution of women in Korean esports has been, as of thus far, limited to that, for a few exceptions. But we'll talk. I actually have one exception that I will talk about later. But just really quickly, I wanted to share my own experience as a woman in gaming. I'm not a professional gamer, and I am also not in Korea, but I just wanted to add my personal experience as a girl playing games. I've just played in a few esports tournament from time to time, and I enjoy playing with my husband. I don't do it very seriously, but and this is a picture of me here wearing my favorite esports team hoodie. And when I posted this on social media, I was called out as a poser and got actually a surprising number of negative comments, which surprised me. And my in-game name in StarCraft and League of Legends is Batgirl. So even though the other people I play with can't see me, they can, and they often do assume that I'm a girl. And I used to want to change my name because of all the misogyny and creepy and hurtful remarks I would get from people, just random internet strangers saying hurtful things like this. But yeah, and I would get these remarks 1 in every 5 games, and I still do when I play. But I like having my names because in my own little way, I can normalize girls in esports, and I can also show guys that I could beat them, and that my gender doesn't affect my skill in the game. So this girl is awesome. She is really inspiring for women in esports. She joined a competitive Korean Overwatch team, and she joined a major esports org, not just like whatever team, because yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, she joined a major organization, one that has generally had pretty good success in Overwatch. So Overwatch is a shooting game, and she of course was accused of cheating, and her haters thought she was using aimbot, which is a program to help you assist in aiming your gun in the shooting game. And that was, they claimed that was the reason for her success. And she was forced multiple times to prove her accusers wrong, like recording herself playing from all sorts of different angles, things like this, to try to prove her accusers wrong. And so, while Geguri's team didn't experience very much tournament success, she still was on a major esports organization, and she is inspiring to many other female gamers, as women have yet to completely break into other major esports organizations in StarCraft and League of Legends. But StarCraft and League of Legends do house, some esports organizations do have all-women teams, but the league is not very competitive, like, for women, and they're often ridiculed, and they're not, the league basically isn't very serious. It doesn't have a lot of money in it, doesn't have a lot of opportunity in it, so it's hard. But there are all women teams. But yeah, this Geguri is awesome because she broke into a very popular major esports organization and was able to be on the main team with her teammates were men, and she was the only girl. And yeah, she's awesome. She's making a difference for women in esports. So to wrap up my presentation today, to bring it back, I wanted to solidify the main reasons why Koreans excel in esports. And this is despite the lack of women on the teams, and despite disappointment that many pro gamers face and how hard it is to become a pro gamer. Korea remains the gaming capital of the world and has experienced more gaming success than any country. And the reasons are because of PC bongs make gaming extremely accessible. People have access to a PC, you can just walk in a PC bong and go play. And popularity of online games is huge. I showed you advertisements in the subways, oh yeah, this is right here, corporations funneling money, but yeah, just popularity. It's broadcasted on cable TV, which is really unique. And yeah, it's just really popular. Corporate sponsorship is huge. Huge companies that make a lot of money are funneling it into esports, giving them opportunity and encouragement, good salaries, things like this that are very encouraging. And esports pros in Korea are seen as idols. They're like superstars, rock stars, or yeah, like awesome football players that we have here. They're famous. They have a ton of money. They marry supermodels. Like they're like Faker is like the Tom Brady of Korea, which is funny because he's just like a little gamer guy, which it's weird from an American perspective because we often have the stigma of calling people that are good at games like geeks or nerds or things like this, but over there they're idolized and they're thought as amazing. And I think that's changing a bit here, but in Korea it's definitely already that way. And then, as I said before, esports is a viable career option. And while some parents don't think it is, other parents actually do support their kids in wanting to be esports pros. And there's all sorts of, like, there's basically esports hagwons in Korea. And training camps from major orgs like Gen.G, T1, all these have options for people to enroll in their amateur scene and get started as a esports professional. So there's a lot of ways to get into it. And their competitiveness in these games is fostered by the competitive drive that is inherent in Korean culture. That all work, no play culture that they have helps them be driven more competitively because they take what they do very seriously and they're willing to put in long hours to practice it and perfect their skills. So yeah, these things are why Korea is #1 among everyone else of playing games, and they're just excellent and they've just dominated the scene for many years. So I appreciate you watching my presentation today. I hope you enjoyed it. The sources for what I've said today are in the notes of my slides, and my literature cited are on the next pages of my presentation. So yeah, again, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.